Stevie, and I'm really excited to finally meet Alyssa from, we've known each other from Bookstagram for almost a year, I want to say now. Yeah, and so I'm excited to finally see you face to face as we can on video. But I'm going to let her jump in and kind of explain why she started Bookstagram and a little about her writing and herself.
Well, as Stevie said, my name's Alyssa. I started a Bookstagram because it was mainly for the writing piece, kind of doing like writing and reading. Figured they both go along well enough, and just kind of trying to like meet people, form a community, as I am writing my first novel, and kind of just working through that, getting some people to read it at certain points and get feedback from, and just a way to connect with people was primarily the reason that I started this. And I am so happy with how many people I have met doing this for, oh gosh, I think I've had a Bookstagram for a year and a half now, give or take.
Yeah. That's awesome. You are rocking it. I love your stuff. If you don't follow her, it's Writing Wanderess, right? Yeah, Writing_Wanderess. And she does hilarious little clips and stuff. And they are so relatable if you're a writer, especially a first time author going in. You do such hilarious clips. And your reels are just spot on.
Thanks. I'm glad you like them. Yeah, it took me a while to kind of get the groove of it. I used to actually be in a lot of my reels a lot. And then at one point, I think like my front phone camera was all messed up. And I was like, okay, switch it up a little bit. And then that kind of just seemed to be working for me and kind of stuck with it.
Right. No, that's the thing is CatCup kind of threw in, right? Isn't that what it's called? There's like an app that we all use. It kind of snuck in there and became like a way to really make easy reels. So if anyone's out there listening for easy way to make relatable reels. Yeah. Did you just stumble upon that, or did someone tell you about it and stuff?
I feel like I think I just saw like in the corner of someone else's reel, like because like sometimes some people don't take out the little logo. It has that little logo top, and I think I saw that, and I was just kind of like, oh, what's this? And then because I think I remember actually the trend that was going on was the one with like Nick Cage and Pedro from that movie. Trying so hard to find that, and I think I googled like, there are people getting this where they can insert their own picture to do this, and that's also how I stumbled upon it, kind of just searching those two things.
That's funny because I feel like that was where I was already using CatCup or whatever, CapCup. I was already using the app, but it wasn't until that same little meme or whatever with the Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal that kind of blew up, that I realized you could do templates on there. I was just kind of using it to kind of dice things together as an easier way. Plus, Instagram Reels, have you ran into this problem? Sometimes they cut your words off. So then CapCut became the easier way to do it.
Yeah, it definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that introduction. And I want to jump in with what kind of books are kind of your go-to books? What are your favorite? Do you find inspiration from certain tropes that you get really excited about?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much primarily what I read is fantasy, a little more like YA / like NA, is really just where I'm at. I don't really read much else. Sometimes I'll throw in dystopian in there. That's definitely kind of, I feel like it's becoming a thing again, and I'm really enjoying it. Because I'm definitely like a part of that whole Hunger Games Divergent era, however many years. So, but maybe fantasy for sure.
Yeah. Is there any like particular types that it gets your wheels going and it just gets you really excited to dive into your story?
Anything that has like in that genre, but that has just a ton of characters. I always love when stories have like a really well-built cast of characters. Found family trope is probably my favorite trope. I just always love when all of that like chemistry between people starts to build, and that's definitely influenced in my work in progress a lot too, and that's something I try and work towards because that's probably like my top tier thing that I've loved in books.
So like Six of Crows, is that one of your top? Yeah, yeah. I feel like that one, yeah, the found family, the multi-point of view, and just where she took that story is so good.
Oh yeah, that's definitely like top books series authors for me. That's auto by author thing.
Oh, right there. Got them right here in the front so everyone can see. No, I agree. Lee Bardugo. I mean, even Shadow and Bone, that series, she just did such a great with cast of characters and making them real. And like the Darkling, she did such a good job at making you hate him, but she is. That's a one for me as well, inspiration. So is your book then, the one you're currently writing, is that one multi-point of view?
It only has 2 points of view. Originally, I just did a major overhaul rewrite. And originally I had several points of view, but I was kind of like getting lost from the story and having too many subplots that I felt like taking away from the overall story. So I did cut it down to just 2 points of view, but I still have lots of characters within those 2 points of view though.
Yeah, like side characters and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, and it also puts, did it help you kind of shift into an easier writing stance as well? Like it was easier for you to kind of be like, I'm just focusing on these two. I want to write on it. I need, like, was it easier to just get into the flow by cutting them down?
At points it was. I think what made that transition, what helped the most was really focusing on those 2 character arcs, whereas before I think they got a little lost with so many views at different points, but it helped me really focus on those characters and to build their main stories up. Because I like to say I have 2 main characters. I know a lot of people who say you can't necessarily have 2, but to me there are 2 main characters, fleshed out arcs, everything. And so that was one of the, I had to focus on that. And there were some things, because there were pieces I kept from like my old original draft that like were written in a different point of view that I had to in this character's point of view that I want to keep. And that was actually really hard because I was like, I don't 100% know how to do this, but I had an editor who had looked at it and kind of suggested the rewrite, who was like, if you're jumping from so many points of views, it's sometimes like it's a good challenge to stick with the one point of view though, because it allows you to really dive deep and work on your own writing instead of just easing into someone else to explain it for you, so to speak.
Yeah, kind of like your whole big plot doesn't get lost within everyone else's.
Yes, and I definitely feel like
yeah. And so you were saying you work then with an editor, and how long have you worked? Is this something, do you talk to them daily, or do you send like, have you sent multiple drafts over, or just the one so far?
Just the one so far. I did a manuscript critique kind of just to get some feedback on the overall thing, because this is something that I've had like the idea of forever, you know, just high school, like kind of like playing with it, daydreaming about it, but never really did anything until I kind of like Bookstagrammer a little bit before that, where I was like, oh, let's take this, because I found out about independent publishing and all of that stuff. Like, okay, try and see where we can go with this. But it was like I had years upon years of daydreaming about it, that I was trying to fit all the little like daydreaming scenes in that weren't necessarily important, you know, but just things that I liked.
They meant a lot to you. Maybe keep them down the road for like a novella or something, or give a side character a little story or something.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I hope for. Like I have a whole draft like saved with all of that stuff, but that was one of those things where it was like I just needed some professional to look at it and kind of be like, okay, what is working and what is not, because I'm having a hard time doing that myself, like cutting your darlings and taking out characters that you don't want to take out because they're not truly serving a purpose other than that I liked them.
Right. I know it is so hard. And that initial kind of like when you give it to somebody else for them to kind of cut it apart, it hurts at first. It really does. But then after a while, because they're your babies, you know, and this is in your head, it just all sounds so wonderful. And how can I cut it? And, but it's so worth it. It does, like, now, do you feel like you're in a really good place? You see the end goal? Is that how kind of you feel right now?
Oh yeah. I was talking to my husband about it the other night of like, there is still a lot that I need to do, like editing wise, because there's things I kind of like changed as I wrote it that need to be fixed a little bit in the beginning for like plot wise and stuff. But it was definitely where like I kind of like looked, like skimmed through my old draft that I had sent to that editor versus the rewrite, and I was like, this is like a full-fledged story now that I feel like I created. Whereas this one, I liked it and it had moments that were, I feel like, were good, but it wasn't what I now realized I was able to do. And so it was very hard to do, but I am glad I did it.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes that's just what a first draft is, right? Sometimes it's just like your mind is just spewing out ideas and where you kind of think, and almost like your world building for fantasy authors, at least, you know, and stuff. It's almost like that's what you're doing. So it is great then to get that feedback and stuff like that, and then be able to create it into an actual story, something you love, something you can see. So I'm happy for you. I'm glad. And that also brings me into, so you are, I think, the first person that I am talking to about storyboards, that you've got your note cards, and you've got I can see them there behind you. Yeah, it's so cool to see. So I want to dive in a little bit on that and kind of ask you, what made you want to start doing a storyboard?
I think it was just to, like, I'm not a plotter. Like, deep down in my soul, I'm not. It's very hard for me. I like to just let it go. But then when I let it go, it tends to just run away, and starts to lose direction, and it's just kind of fluffy stuff. And so it's one of those where I had gotten Save the Cat in the middle of like the original story that I was writing. And I was kind of like, I looked at it and I was like, I'm too far along. You know, different things talk about you don't have to follow that. So I'm just going to keep going. But then when I knew I was rewriting, I was like, okay, let's pause and like actually plan out both points of view. And like some of it was vague, but it was more of like, I need at least like beginning,
like a structure.
Beginning, middle, and end. What is those points, and what are we going to get to, and what are we trying to get to? And mainly, like, for me, it was, what is really my character develop, like their character arc? What is beginning, and where is that going, and what's all their motivation behind that? And I feel like I had that in the original draft, but it wasn't super clear. And that's one of the things my editor mentioned. She's like, I see it. She's like, but it's not like, you kind of have to look for it more than you should have to look for it. And I was like, I understand that. And that was something I knew I was struggling with. So the board was something where I'm like, I needed it like here, so I can look at it and have it and go back to it. Because even still, like, I have it and like my characters start to take it away. And I'm like, okay, we're going in a direction that doesn't make sense. Where are we supposed to be going at this point in time?
That's great. I love that. I think that's perfect. Because like you said, having it right there with you. So like when you are going into a scene, do you kind of look over your notes then for that scene or that chapter? Is that how you structure it, by chapter, or how do you structure it?
I kind of structure it like, there's more like, there's my beginning, my middle, and my end. What do I need to accomplish from the beginning to the middle? And then when I'm at the middle, kind of a bigger point and a transition period than from the middle to the end. And I have like little bits and pieces in between, but it's more like that's where my pantser side comes in. Like, okay, this is what we're starting the chapter with, and this is kind of where the chapter needs to end. You do whatever the heck you want to do in between. So that's how my brain works. And so that to be what's kind of more the planster-ish, where it's meeting in the middle of, okay, I have a plan. Here's beginning of the chapter. And sometimes I didn't know the end of the chapter, and I'd have to like pause and be like, okay, what does the end need to be though? So we have a direction to go in and we're not just all over the place.
Yeah. So it doesn't change what you have for the next step, kind of a thing. Yeah. The dreaded plot holes. We don't need to run away with our imaginations and create a pothole.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, because that's something I've been trying to work on too. I can't do the storyboard. I've tried the post-it notes. I even have some where like I've saved them to go back to them. But my brain retaliates. It'll be like, it's too structured. This is no longer fun. All my creativity is gone.
I get that. I really do. That's why I kind of had to have the openness of the chapter itself, because I think I had it in my beginning of my story was so structured that I did kind of have that moment of like, this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like free to just write and see where it goes. And like I totally agree. And I feel that with you too.
Yeah. But we also, I have learned for me, to not get too over structured, but I kind of do a chapter kind of layout. Like if I end on a big point, I will do the next 4 chapters.
Okay.
Just say this kind of stuff needs to happen in chapter 17. This needs to happen in 18. Now I still have creativity then to kind of put things, but it has to have these certain elements in there or to get to this next part, you know? Like that's my storyboard, my world, my structure. It's slowly getting there. But I think you are doing amazing. I love watching your stuff. And so I see you have like different colors too. Does that matter, or is that just because you had different colors?
No, it does matter. They're kind of hard. They're super faded because we were living in Texas and the morning sun beat on like right now.
Yeah.
These are a beautiful, brilliant purple.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, they're almost like white now, but some of them are missing because I take them down and took them out. But I had like 3 colors, like 1, 2, 3 colors, and you can't see it over here. And that's like beginning, middle, and end. That's why there's no colors. And then this is the other point of view. So it's like point of view 1,
that's perfect. Yeah.
Beginning, middle, and end, basically.
Yeah, that's smart. I like that. Yeah, I'll have to pick your brain a little bit more maybe one day. Because the main reason I asked about the color coding too is because I've kind of done that, but each character is a different colored pen. So whenever I get a new idea, a fresh idea in my head, that's the first thing that I always do is I pick out what color feels like them, and then I roll with that. Personalities. Oh, did we get cut off?
Yeah, I think we're good though.
Oh no. But yeah, so that's what I just kind of use. So my color coding is pens. Plus, do you feel like writing it down instead of over like putting it in your phone notes or a computer doc or something? Does it help you remember it a little bit better to physically write it down?
I would say physically writing it down does help me remember it, but I'm definitely the person who texts myself like as I'm falling asleep. Have a whole, it's like literally texts to me. So it's not like phone notes. Go to my contact that says me. I text myself real quick, and it's this whole long thing. And the thing is, I need to not do that because things are getting lost. Like when I go to
say, then you're like trying to scroll and find, because I do similar. So mine is called Mimi, and actually which was a joke from high school, but I had my son, I was like, I just thought of this. I was driving and I'm like, find the contact that says Mimi and put this in there. So I do something similar as well. Just have it text to you. If it's something that I want to use right away. Now, what I get what you're saying, where it's like then things get lost though because you have an idea, but then you're like, wait, this is an idea that won't happen for down the road. Now I got to scroll and find what I need now. That kind of a situation.
Yeah. It's like, and it's probably, I'll take a little bit of time off. I have one friend reading it right now. I'll wait till she's finished. She should be finished soon. And then I'm going to like go through that whole chain and pick out like, okay, what are things that maybe you missed that you really did want, or things you need better and stuff, and kind of put that somewhere more cohesive. So it's not, but I definitely, if I write it, I'll usually remember it and just be able to like the note. Cause like you said, I agree with that, where if I write it down, I can tend to remember it compared to like text in the middle of the night.
Right. I know, when you're half asleep. I know that's something I had to stop that, like, because otherwise I would wake up and be like, I don't even know what I was trying to say. I don't know what, like, what green mist. Okay, what do you mean green mist? You know? But so you have someone reading. Is it like an alpha reader, or is this someone, did you find this person on Bookstagram, or is it a friend?
Found them. I have one writing group that I'm a part of, and we meet twice a week. And I had Discord, so I had just shot through the Discord like, hey, does anyone want to swap, or does anyone just have time to go through mine as I'm writing it?
Oh, good.
Their drafts, I had like made a post looking for beta readers, and then like had ask if they could do it and different stuff. But this time I was like, I need someone going along with me almost. So like I do more chapters, and so I could see her feedback as I was going and kind of up as I went a little bit like that. And I think that's been super helpful for me. Also, of like even just the comments of like, oh, this is amazing, and I'm like, okay, it's not type of thing.
It is a huge step, because I think I don't know how you felt, but I was always afraid to share my writing. One, to be like, I was afraid of it being criticized and stuff, or like just realizing I'm a horrible writer. No one's ever going to like it. You know what I mean? Like all that imposter syndrome. So it is good to just get that feedback. And even when someone's got that critical feedback, it is nice to have someone who knows your characters now and can be honest, and you're and you trust them too, you know? And like, did it help by finding that person? Did it help boost did it make it more like this is happening, and your confidence and stuff? Like, I am a writer. I can do this. Did it kind of help?
It does help with the confidence piece, because like I said, some of the comments like say something happens that's a little more dramatic, and if I get like the reaction I was looking for, I'm like, okay, so like I am doing it. It does make sense. Not super confusing, and like I'm not just some sham of someone trying like I still call this more like a first draft, because it's probably 85 to 90% completely new, like storyline, everything. Like it was a rewrite. And so like I would send her new pieces. I'm like, please ignore the grammar. I'm like, it's terrible. I do this, words are even misspelled. I'm so sorry. I just need your overall like gist. Do you get
how did this make you feel? Do you like this character, or do you not, kind of a thing?
Are the type of thing, like how is all of that going? And so when I get like her like positive reactions, and then there's things she's pointed out, especially like my magic system world building, I probably made it more complex at points than I need it to be. And so pointed out some things with that of like, this is a little confusing. And so even I sit with it of like, do I even need that in there, or how? So that's been super helpful too, of just that criticism is good, kind of like you said, super hard, but it's one of those where it's like, okay, that it's not going to be perfect. It'll probably never be perfect. There's always going to be people like that don't like it. So
yeah.
It's super hard though. I definitely struggle with imposter syndrome probably every day, but it's
same. I think we all do. I think even the big dogs or whatever, I think they do too. They probably, I mean, if you've ever watched a George R.R. Martin interview, he still like doesn't believe himself as a great writer. You know, he'll be like, you never get brain farts and you don't want to write for 3 months. And
yeah, great. When talking to like Stephen King and he's like, how do you do this? He's like, I'll sit there and stare at it for hours and nothing will happen. And Stephen King's just like chugging them out or whatever. And
I know him. And I actually was having this conversation with my son, Stephen King and R.L. Stein. I'm like, I cannot compare. Like, they are just the type that they write a whole book in a week, I swear. And then his are like this thick. And I'm like, how do you do this? He's superhuman for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So do you consider this an alpha reader? And then are you going to go through like one more like rewrite kind of a thing, or like a redo of another draft 2, and then get beta readers, or what's kind of your plan?
My plan, I would say, at first I was thinking she's an alpha reader. She's almost more, I don't really know the difference between critique partners and alpha readers. So I would say it's like she's one of those where it's like, like she's seeing the like roughest of drafts just for me to get, does the story, do the character arcs make sense? And then I will probably read through it and edit it twice, once to kind of fix the major like kind of holes in and then try and go through more for the grammar part, and probably at that point get a few beta readers.
Okay. And that was one of my questions. Like, do you have a timeline, like a goal of when you want this to be published? Or is it just more of like, or like even a goal for this draft to be done and start the next one on a certain month? Do you have that kind of in mind?
I would like to. I think I'm going to try and sit down while I'm waiting for her to finish up with the feedback and everything and kind of plan something out. The only problem with like me planning things out is like we tend to move and different stuff like that. I didn't really mention in the beginning, but like I live in a fifth wheel camper and we travel for my husband's job, and that just always throws me for a loop. And like I think I've been on the road with him 3 years now or something, and it still throws me for a loop because it's all this shifting and change, and so I tend to like not focus on it as much. So I mean, realistically, if we could not move until like we go home to visit family for Christmas, I think I could get it out to beta readers by then, is kind of my hope.
Yeah.
For publishing wise, I'm not 100% sure like when that'll be. I mean, hopefully like sometime next year. The biggest thing, if I could do this probably within a year starting from now, that would be great. But I'm trying to kind of look into things like, I don't know if you've heard of like Kickstarter, that there's several people I follow who've done some of those, and it seems to be a pretty cool route to kind of get the really cool book that I would like to get out there. So I'm gonna try and like look into that and see what that's about for some ideas and different stuff too. But I need a little more concrete goals. I had planned concrete goals for this rewrite, but it was a much bigger thing that I took on. And it was like, I mean, I'll be honest, it was like really shot down when like someone tells me like, you should probably rewrite. I was like, I was expecting some feedback to fix it and like publish it within this year. So like that really knocked me down for a little bit. But I get her feedback, and like she had a lot of positive feedback, but I still mainly heard like you have to rewrite it, and it's like
because that's so daunting.
Daunting, and it took me a while to get there. Like I said, I'm totally thankful and grateful. I think it's what God had planned. He knew like it needed like to go, and I think that was like a draft I needed to start my skills as a writer. And now that I understand more what that takes, I've been able to get to a different point level.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it is. So I had to do that with my romantasy. It was my nano project last year, and I got too worked up in the trying to get the 50K that eventually my characters made no sense. Their like original like arcs and stuff now we're all blending into like one big, like they're all becoming the same character. And then it's got like demons and darkness and a big evil rise up and stuff. And that was being pushed to the side and kind of forgotten for the romance of things. And so I had to do the same thing. I had to step back and I saw it myself though first. And then that's when I found two amazing alpha readers that as I was rewriting, I'm like, I need somebody to tell me that now it's finally going in the place it needs to go, you know? So I've been there. I get it. Rewrites are it took me 3 months to get back into it because I was just like so devastated.
Yeah, that's the best. It's one of those where like it's devastating because it is a big thing to take on. And yeah, I think it took me like to actually like start doing that took me like I think a month and a half to almost 2 months. And then it was like even as I was doing it, it was just like, okay, I don't know how this is going. And that's where like getting the alpha reader to like get some feedback of like, yeah, this is great. Yeah, fix this, but this is really good. And it's like, okay, we're on a good track.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You're not alone in this and making a fool of yourself for the second time, right? That's how I felt. I'm like, okay, good. This is making sense. And yeah, it just because it is. You get so imposter syndrome is in our heads all the time, anyways. So then when something that you like that comes along, you're just like, am I gonna ever get there? Is it gonna happen? Yeah. So how is it? I was gonna ask this too before I forget. So you said you live in a fifth wheel. How is it then in your space? How did you find a space? Can you use it and have it set up all the time, or do you kind of have to put things away? How does that work?
I have a pretty good system of like how I have to put everything away when we move. I've at least figured that out. And I mean, I'm at like the kitchen table technically is what it is, but we don't the kitchen table to eat or anything. So I turned that into my desk because we had an old camper and that actually had a desk space, which was great. But then the problems with that one and we had to get a different one. And I was like, okay, this one doesn't have a desk. And so I just turned the kitchen table into that space. That's why the notes are on the wall because I don't really have, or on the window because I don't really have walls.
Yeah.
The window. Right. And so that's one of those things. And I just have my laptop on a stand that puts it up a little higher to kind of help with my posture. And then I kind of just tuck it all into an ottoman we have, and it's pretty easy to kind of all throw back up there.
That's good. That's great. Because that's something my husband and I have talked about. I mean, we kick ourselves for not like joining the tiny home rush or craze years ago when our kids were toddlers, because now they're jumping into teenage and now everyone needs space. So it's like, well, I guess our tiny home dreams are going to have to wait till they're all out. Yeah. But eventually that's where I want to be. I want to be in a camper, moving from here to there and stuff like that. But I can see how it could have its pluses, but a downside is as a writer and a book collector.
I definitely have books. Like, I know my husband doesn't know how many books are actually in this camper. Like, I'm set up and like on these little end tables by the couch and everything. And sometimes like those pop up if I do pictures or whatever. But like, there's some in the closet. There's some like underneath the bed that has space. Like, they're all over the place. And so that's one of those things where like I always want to get more books, but I'm like, I literally don't have room right now. So I'll take some home like to my parents' house over the holiday. Stuff them on a shelf there. I'm like, I'll come back for you someday, I promise. Yeah.
Oh. Well, and see, that's something even I'm running into the problem of. I've got like floating shelves, and then I've got this built-in shelf here. But as you can see, like they're all piled on top of each other and stuff. And I told my son, and then I've got another shelf in our bedroom, and that one's just like a big old mess. And I told my son, I was like, I think I'm going to have to start just delivering to little libraries so I can make more room, because I'm literally to the point where I can't buy anymore, or we're going to have them piled on the floor.
I thought about like downsizing in that way of like, okay, I need to keep ones that's like, I will reread this. Like, obviously, I haven't read, but I'm like, if I'm not going to reread it, or if like my husband and I have kids someday and they're not going to like maybe be interested, or like not something, I don't like that, or I didn't think it was good enough of like, I'm not gonna let them read that or whatever it is. So I've thought about that where I'm like, okay, maybe start giving to like little free libraries and stuff like that, or even when like, okay, someone else gets to enjoy it and some lucky person free, which is what I hope sometimes, you know, when you open one, like let there be like just a really good one I've been looking for in here for a really long time.
I know. I haven't found like any lately. That's why I'm like, maybe I could give some away and then make someone else's day, you know, and be like, oh, I didn't know. I would thought like this one, I think someday I would read it, but I could give it away. I don't know. Sometimes I'm kind of like over it now, but there's certain ones where I'll keep forever, like the Mark series, Six of Crows. Obviously, I could have every edition of Dracula. So there's a lot that I could keep, but then there's most of the ones that are in my bedroom. I mean, they could all go. I won't reread those. They don't have a big place in my heart, you know, and stuff. They were okay, but not my favorites, or ones that I bought 5 years ago and I still haven't read. So it's like, maybe get rid of them. Yeah. No, I think that's the struggle of everyone. Unless we have a Beauty and the Beast library, then we eventually have to get rid of them at some point. Make room for new.
Yeah.
And so I was gonna ask too. So you talked about, okay, so what is your kind of routine? Do you write daily then, or do you have certain days that are your writing days, certain times a day?
It's actually something new I started just a like month or two ago because someone else mentioned it on their stories. Because before it was like I was trying like, okay, am I a morning writer? Let's wake up, do like, you know, a couple hours in the morning before we need to do, you know, all the adult things later in the day. And then I was like, hey, I'm not really a morning person to be trying to sit. Take me forever to get started, and by the time I'm going, it's done. So what I actually started doing was like 20-minute sprints throughout the day, basically. So 20 minutes, set the timer, can't get on the phone for like Instagram because I was really bad about that, where like I would
scrolling
like, little reward, and it's like going. So that helped a lot with that issue that I had too. So it's like 20-minute sprint, then get up and do whatever else I need to do in the day, come back, 20-minute sprint. And so like that's been super helpful, where like I would get pages and pages done that way. And also like I had to kind of take off like how many words am I getting in a day, or how many chapters or how many pages, because that was like it's different every day. And so like a day where like maybe I literally fixed 2 sentences, but if I felt like that was accomplishing and super needed, I felt good about it. So if I wasn't word count and stuff, also I had to stop focusing on the word count because it was getting too high. So that was also the point where I had to stop looking at the word count. But the 20-minute sprints have been super great, and I'll usually do those up until like I make dinner, and then I'd probably be done with them. And I don't really write on the weekends a ton. I usually, because my husband has a ton of different things. With one of the days, that Saturday, I do meet with the writing group. So if I do write on the weekend, it's just for an hour with them, something quick. That's about it.
Okay. So that's cool. So you guys actually get together and kind of write? Do you guys put like are you on screen like this and then everyone puts it on silent as you write? Or is it just more of like, how's it work?
Like it's more like that. Like we get on, kind of say what we're working on, how we're doing in life, and we usually like ask like a question to kind of all get to know each other, because we're still like a fairly new group. We're definitely getting along. Like it's been a while that we've been doing this now, and then yeah, we'll write for about, I'd say after we're talking, and then we kind of do a wrap up at the end. So probably write 40 minutes. We're just on silent. And what I have found has been helpful with that is that like I literally can't get on my phone for like Instagram or something. That's where like I get on for the video chat. So like I can't like be scrolling looking at it even if I was on my computer, because probably someone would notice and then say something. So
yeah, call you out.
And then kind of just like wrap up, talk about it. We've done like workshops where we'll put in some of like our like a chapter to get some help on. Like some of us will do about something we're stuck with too, and that's been super helpful as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Because I tried to start a couple of, I think it was only one. I tried to start one group that was like that and stuff, but there was only a couple people who really participated. And it was more of, I wanted it to eventually get to something like that, where it was share something you wrote that day. Let us hype you up and help you out and stuff like that. Never quite got that far. But I love that. I think that is great. I think that's what the community is so great for. So I'm glad you found that. Yeah.
Great.
So is that, you said that's something you do on Saturdays, every Saturday, or is it every couple Saturdays?
Every Saturday, and then usually once during the week too, we'll meet. Because some people like, I usually can't meet on the weekends, but sometimes I can get it thrown in there and everything, but usually the evening one during the week. And I've thought about starting another one too, but I just haven't gotten around to it with all the moving and stuff. Yeah. But that's hoping to get another one, because some of us like can't always meet, depending on schedules. Sometimes I change time zones and that screws everything up for me too. Oh. So it kind of just depends on that. And like, we definitely filter in and out, but we'll usually like, I sent a message and we were going to have one tonight. And I was like, oh, I won't be there tonight. I'm doing a podcast with a book. Like, just kind of like still a check-in of like, I'm still here. I still exist. I still want to be. But a lot of us summer, but like we all still like checked in and everything like that. So I think that helped us to like hold on to it for once all the activities and trips and everything were done.
That's awesome. I love that. Because it really is. I mean, even something like that really helps you feel like you are a writer and stuff, you know? Because especially before, I guess I fall into this all the time. I'm not quite, now I have stuff on Bella, so I feel like I can call myself a little bit of an author. But I was always like, I'm just a writer. I'm not really an author. You know, that's how I always like looked at it and felt. So it's nice to find similar people who are in the similar kind of mindset, the same boat, and not feel so alone at all this and stuff. Like, we're all here. We're all doing it and cheering each other on.
Yeah. And that was, like you said, it was hard to do that because it was like, I don't know. I feel like we were all, the era that's on Bookstagram was a part of that group that was like, don't make friends on the internet. They could be dangerous. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like that was for a long time of like, can I trust with my, or like you said, or just getting them from random people. But it's one of those where like, oh, if you just build it up and have the conversations, or even like you and I just randomly checking in on how are you, nice little like catch up to have, knowing like there's another writer out there who's checking in on me. Really? And like both doing this, and maybe we're struggling, but we're gonna get there too.
Yeah, it's nice. And I'm glad we've connected. I always felt like right from the get-go, I could kind of, like, we were in the same boat, and I could kind of check in on you and be like, how are you feeling today? Because maybe I'm feeling similar, you know, it's the same kind of thing. And so another question that I wanted to ask too was, do you find writing like certain characters are easier or harder? Like, is the villain easier to write, or a cinnamon roll, or even like a humorous side character? Like, what's your favorite to kind of write?
I do like kind of the humorous side character. I have one, and where I kind of give him almost like a lot of my qualities, where it's like a little bit like 80 erratic, spastic-ness a bit. So like that's kind of like who I can relate to, and I can really get those emotions and moments out. But then sometimes I really do like to write the villain piece too. I just always been interested like in how those stories are, and like stories that have good villains that kind of like actually have their own arc rather than just being the bad guy. That's
Yeah, like the complexity of it and stuff.
and different stuff like that too. So probably like between those two, I really kind of struggle like with the main character hero archetype though. So
Yeah.
like struggle with the most, because it's just like you have to put so much growth build into, I feel like, that character, and it's like you want to get it right, and that's probably what I struggle with though.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes with a real straight-laced hero, I struggle with, I don't want them to be corny, or are they going to come off like snooty or something, you know? Like, I'm always worried about that, because I've got a character, he's actually the king, and he's been through like a lot or whatever, but that was something that was wrong in the first draft, or the one that I had to totally rewrite, was he was coming off more just like this snooty, arrogant person, where he's supposed to be like this. Yes, he wants to do everything right by the realm, and like he's very by the
Oh,
book kind of a character, you know, like loyal person, but he's got like warrior blood in him. He's the battle, you know, he's like ripped heads off of people and stuff. And, you know, so I also had to dig deeper into his past and his morally grayness and like that kind of stuff. So, yes, he's the very much like, let's stay on the straight and arrow here. But he's also like, okay, you guys are making me mad and rah, you know?
right.
um, so I get that. Like, I feel like the villain can be kind of fun. And that's where Morley Gray does come in. They are fun to kind of mess with, because you've got kind of both sides, you know? And so where would you, so you've got two main characters. Where would you kind of like place them? On what level? Kind of villain, Morley Gray, the hero.
They're kind of like the I saw a reel today that kind of explained a little bit about one, but they're kind of where one of them tries to be confident and kind of like, I call it like she's wearing masks and trying
Okay.
facade that she is confident and everything, but really like deep down she's not, but also like has all of this like kind of trauma and different stuff that really does affect. And so that's kind of where she's at. And then the other one is more like just straight trauma and like trying everything. She's a new point of view. And so, but she's the one who's like really kind of works on herself though, and like wants to
Okay.
and work through it in different parts. And so kind of like that journey as well is more what hers is.
Yeah. I like that. So you've got one who kind of like holds all the emotions and has them all, maybe screaming in her head and stuff like that, but on the outside has that very kind of tough exterior kind of a thing. Yeah. And then someone else who's like, there's nothing that's like sane or tough about me. Like, this is who I am. And like that kind of, that's an awesome dynamic. That's fun. And everything that you have shared, I love, whether it's your aesthetic, like it just gets me excited for you. And to when it finally gets and you publish and stuff, and like when you get to beta readers, I am signing up for that because I'm so excited to dive into your story. I just think it looks really cool. Your magic system already seems really intriguing. So do you want to kind of you said this has been with you since high school. So was it like the world building, the characters? Which part has been with you?
Some like my main character, the world building for sure, and that's definitely grown like way more than it used to be. It's all focused on elemental powers, but I just kind of had like way back in high school the main four
Gotcha.
of just like earth, air, but then it's grown like light, darkness, lightning, like kind of really.
Nice. Yeah.
And then my main character has pretty much always been the same.
Okay.
And of her like side characters have always been there too. And there's probably like one or two of them I still should have gotten rid of this rewrite, but since they've been with me that but
it's hard.
Publishing, I'm gonna say, like that's one of the things that I get to do what I want and they're still gonna stay. And they still serve a purpose and everything, but it's one of those where like I probably could have cut them, but I've had them with me for so long and they've grown and evolved and everything that it's really hard for me to think about getting rid of them.
No, I get that. It is. These are, like I said earlier, they're like our babies. All these have, and maybe down the road, you'll see those characters are the ones that you're putting into novellas or diving deeper into, you know, and stuff. So, or you could even like pull from. That's how I always feel, especially in fantasy books, who have a lot of side characters or characters you just run into. There's a lot that can just be pulled from that. Like George R.R. Martin does it all the time, and several others, you know, where it's like you only hear of them partially. Like one of my favorite books from George R.R. Martin is just someone who died a year or 100 years before. It's A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, Sir Dunk the Tall. Love that book. Love the character. And you only, you know, hear about him in passing, people talking of the past in, you know, Game of Thrones and stuff. So I think that's cool. I'm glad that you're hanging on because you never know where those characters might take you someday.
Yeah. Like I can probably use them much more later in the series. And like, there's one that's definitely like, I could see a novella too, like you said. So I'm like, just keep holding on for those. It maybe isn't as important like right now, but I still want, like you said, and kind of get there later on.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So I just have a few more questions.
Yeah.
So how long have you really been writing? You said you've had this idea since high school. Have you been writing since high school or prior, or when did you really kind of take that step?
I used to like writing a lot in elementary school and like wrote through high school, took like creative writing in high school twice with two different teachers because I needed some electives. So like I've always loved it. But then like college and different stuff and like it really just fell away. And sometimes I would go back to the story idea, write the beginning again. Like I can't even tell you how many beginnings this story has had. And so, but like, I really did fall away from it through college, just like didn't have the time, didn't think it would go anywhere. So it felt pointless. The big thing, I didn't see writing as a hobby, which seems really weird to think about now. Cause like, if I can read as a hobby, why can't I just write something as a hobby, even if that's all it became? So that was one of those things where I was like, it's not really a hobby to me. And like, I've written other small things here and there, but then it was one of those with like living on the road. I don't have like, I'm just a housewife because we move so much that getting a job is hard. We usually live places, remote working is super hard too. And so I have more time and like, I still do a ton of different stuff around here, and with the moving and everything can be really complex when that comes up. But it was one of those, I'm like, okay, I have this period of time in my life. Let's really focus on it. And like finding out like, oh, independent publishing is a thing, because like traditional publishing is its own beast, I feel like. And it's, for me, I think I'd rather tackle the beast that comes with independent publishing compared to that one. Hearing that, I was like, oh, okay, like this seems a little more doable and real to me.
Yeah. No, I kind of relate to that as well, because I've been writing since I was young. I remember writing stories, and I remember writing stories and stuff like that didn't always have it was happy enough ending or whatever, but it wasn't always the happiest ending. And I remember my mom always looking at me being like, that's wonderful, but you really want to, maybe let's have a happy ending, And I was like, well, it's just not that kind of story,
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been writing like forever. And then in high school, in elementary school too, I had this teacher who was really great, and we had to write 30 minutes a day, or I forget how long it was, but you wrote. And I remember I wrote this Olympic story. Me and all my best friends were different Olympists and stuff, And then on Fridays, you could get up and share your story. And I remember that was kind of where it really kind of jump started for me. I thought that was fun, even being able to share it. Of course, I had a lot more confidence when I was 12, 11, and stuff. And then in high school, I did it, but that's when I really started to hide it. I think because I was like worried, not a lot of my friends read fantasy and stuff like that. And that's what I was getting deeper into. That's what I was writing. And so I felt like that I wasn't confident in it. Plus, I did feel like this will always just be a hobby, A small town Iowa person, they don't become authors, that's for big city people. That's what I always felt, So it was nice. Finally, I have to give my husband props. I think he was the one that kind of was like, you should do it. Give it you love this. You are, good at it and stuff like that. Of course, I'm always like, you have to say that. So,
right.
So I love that because I relate to the kind of always having it in you, but then feeling like, you got to put dreams aside and do real things, and stuff. But look at us, we're doing it and we're making it happen. So my final question is, will you be doing NaNoWriMo this year, or are you going to skip it?
I'm probably going to skip it because I really kind of just want to, like I said, hopefully get it to beta readers of some kind, by the end of the year. So then at the beginning of the year, I can really kind of get it going and hopefully publish it. So I will probably skip it this year, which I'm a little bummed about because it's one of those where it's like I have the ideas in the back of my mind that I know. Jumpstart, but then I'm like, I'm also the person that's like, I've got to focus on the one thing or else I know I'll get lost in all the other things.
Yeah, that's good. So just ignore everyone who's doing Nano because I want you to totally focus on it, and I want you, because I understand that as well. Being super sidetracked and knowing you have this goal in mind and stuff like that. And as fun as Nano is, it's always like you seem to jump in, or I seem to jump in with a brand new idea instead of being like, maybe I should just use that 50K to finish my book that's
right.
almost done. So, well, that's good to know. Then I won't bother you about Nano.
You're doing it because I always love watching people and like they'll give their little updates, and it's still such like a fun, like, how far is everyone getting and what are their ideas and different stuff.
Yeah, it is. I do love that month. I think it really brings the writing community together. I think that's one thing why I love being a part of Nano, is because I always find new people or someone who I didn't know was writing. Maybe I've been on Bookstagrammer for 3 years. And there was several people last year, I had no idea that they were writing a book. And I'm like, this is cool. We have something else. Not only do you love my favorite books, but we can talk about writing together. We can cheer each other on. But if there's anything else that you want to kind of add or talk about your book, then I'm more than happy. Let me know.
I don't think so. I still have a super hard time explaining my book at this point. It's one of those things I struggle with super bad, but I'm so glad to have come on here and just talk and get to like this, like you said, face to face as best as we can in life. But This has just been a great experience. I've loved all of your questions, and maybe next time I'm on here at some point, I can definitely better to you.
No, I can't wait. I would definitely love to have you on once you are to that point where you're kind of maybe in beta reader zone, or it's finished, it's out there. You're just trying to do the last little tidbits and stuff. That will be fun. And I thank you so much for coming on. I just asked you quickly. It was like, you know what, we talk. You're writing, you're doing really well. Maybe she wants to come on. So I'm so glad that you wanted to come on.
Yeah. Asked.
Yeah. You didn't even hesitate. I loved that. I loved it. I was like, yes, I'm so glad, because I wanted to talk to you. So thank you. This has been awesome. And I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah. See ya.
See ya.